Hi guys and welcome. My name is Kirsten and in this video I am talking about why I switched from breastfeeding to formula. I'm a first-time mom to a little boy named Elliot. He's now actually 16 months old. So I'm making this video when I'm well out of the thick of having a newborn and dealing with all of the feeding struggles, because now that I'm through it and I have a little boy who's just growing and developing and doing so many fun things, I can kind of look back on that time a lot more clearly, obviously, than when I was right in the thick of it. The reason I wanted to make this video and share this is because I really wanted to make other moms going through the same thing just feel less alone and have the way that you feel just be validated. When I was dealing with breastfeeding struggles and switching to formula to feed my baby felt like such a hard decision to make. I remember Googling and searching online just to find any article or blog post or whatever of somebody else that was going through the same thing and kind of felt the same way that I did, so that I again didn't feel alone. Being a new mom is wonderful and there's so many joyous parts of it, but there are also really hard parts that I just don't feel like are talked about enough, at least not in real life. And I think that's what's so great about social media, is people can reach out and find others and connect with them online in ways that maybe they wouldn't be able to in their day-to-day life with the people that they're around, because it's hard to find other people going through the same things that you are. With all that said, I'm just gonna jump right into how my journey went from pregnancy up through transitioning my baby from breast milk to formula. So I do just want to say that I fully realize this is a first world problem, if you will, for me and for anybody else that has the means to feed their family. Starting with pregnancy, I honestly had a pretty easy pregnancy. I was so lucky in that I didn't get very sick. I had, the minor aches and pains and being tired and things like that, but overall my pregnancy was kind of a breeze compared to how I know it could have gone. Me being naive and just thinking that everything's gonna be sunshine and butterflies, I was like, wow, I am just so naturally a mother, pregnancy has come easy for me. I bet I'm gonna have a great birth, and I plan to breastfeed and it's just gonna be wonderful and I'm gonna bond with my baby. It's gonna be amazing. And then Elliot was actually born 3 weeks early, so 37 weeks on the dot. I was not ready. I did not have the hospital bag packed. I didn't have the nursery ready. So that threw me for a loop and was the first indicator that motherhood is not gonna go the way you think it's gonna go in your head. And I'm very much a person that gets attached to certain expectations in my head, so I think that these lessons were thrown my way to just help me grow as a person. I had a pretty good birth overall, and this is not a birth story, so I won't get into those details, but all of that went well, and Elliot was born at 6 pounds 4 ounces. Right when he was born, he did kind of latch on and start breastfeeding, but when you haven't ever breastfed before, you just don't know how it's supposed to feel. I constantly had doubt and couldn't tell if he was actually getting anything. As we were in the hospital for the next couple days, the nurses would check in on me, and some of them were absolutely fantastic. Actually, most of them were, as far as helping me with breastfeeding, and they offered to have a lactation consultant come and see us so that we could work on the breastfeeding, because I didn't feel confident about it. I really just didn't feel like he was actually getting anything. And I know obviously first year milk hasn't come in and it's just colostrum, but I still had that feeling, he just didn't feel like he was fully latched on. And I remember when he would spit up, I would analyze the way the spit up looked to see is there actually anything in there? Is there milk in that spit up? Is he getting nutrition from me? It took a while for a lactation consultant to come in and meet with us. I think I met with them on the last day that we were there before we went home for that day. She was helpful, but still I felt overwhelmed, and when we were done meeting with her, I still didn't feel like my mind was fully wrapped around it or that I had the hang of it. Once we got home, we just continued with the feeding the only way that I knew how, which was to try to get him to latch on and sandwich my boob and try to get him to latch the way the nurses would show me and the lactation consultant would show me. And he would get a little bit, but then maybe less than an hour later, he'd be up crying again, hungry. A lot of those first nights at home, I guess within the first week, were really, really stressful. We were just exhausted. If you're watching this video, I'm sure you've been a new parent before and you know how that goes, but you don't know tired until you've had a child. It's just insane how much you deteriorate mentally when you're not getting proper sleep. The lack of sleep and the crazy hormones and just the struggles with feeding and the life change of having a brand new baby was all really, really hard. And what I found the most difficult about it, I think, was that when you have a baby, everyone assumes that it's the most wonderful time of your life because you just brought a baby into the world and you must be so in love, and how could you even remember your life before them? But that's not how I felt, and I think it was because of these challenges and with the baby blues and hormones swinging around. It was just a really hard time, and I just felt very alone. And I don't know, it's just not something you really want to openly talk about with people, because again, you're supposed to be happy and in this in love baby bubble. I mean, other than my husband, he was great, and I would talk to him and tell him how I was feeling, and that really helped a lot. We took him to his doctor's appointment. That is the one that's just a couple days after you go home from the hospital, and his weight had dropped a little bit, but it wasn't to the point where the pediatrician was concerned yet. So we went home and we continued doing what we were doing, and then at that point we actually had gotten an appointment again with a different lactation consultant. At that point we fully still did not know what we were doing with feeding, doing our best as new parents, just like not having a clue. We brought him to that appointment. So he was born at 6 pounds 4 ounces, and I think he got down to 5 pounds 8 ounces, or I don't know, something like that. I can't remember the precise numbers, but it was a concerning level of weight loss, when at that point he should have already been swinging back up towards his birth weight. The lactation consultant weighed him and saw what those numbers were showing and asked me if I was open to using formula. And I just broke down and cried in her office, because I think it all just sort of hit me at once, and I already was feeling like a failure and feeling so not confident in my skills as a mom. When you have a brand new baby like that, you're just supposed to keep him fed, changed, and cuddled, and I couldn't do the main thing, which was keep him fed. So I just felt like a failure. Everybody hears it, that breast milk is best, breast is best. I am somebody that totally wanted to breastfeed, and I still believe that breast milk is the best nutritional choice for your child. That's what our bodies are meant to do. It's natural, and we provide the nutrients our babies need that are tailored specifically to them, and that's like the coolest, most beautiful thing in the world. So we just sort of put this pressure on ourselves and build this expectation that that's the one and only way to do it. You shouldn't do it any other way. So I was like, no, I haven't wanted to do formula, but if you think we should, I'm desperate at this point, so let's do it, I guess. But that came with a lot of like guilt and sadness. She showed us how to supplement with formula, where you put a little tube in the formula bottle, and then that tube goes to where your nipple is, and then it's your baby's sort of like latching onto you, but also getting supplemental milk from the formula at the same time in case they aren't latching well. So we tried that a little bit, but it was so frustrating for me, because like the tube wouldn't stay, he still couldn't latch properly. It was just really stressful. So we started pretty quickly realizing that it was easier just to feed him by having him suck on our finger with the tube and like feed that way and get the formula. And then we had another just normal follow-up pediatrician appointment, and we explained what we were doing, and I was like, do you think we should just move to a bottle, because that's basically what we're doing by feeding him on our finger? She was like, yeah, that's fine. So then we switched over to a bottle. And to back up a little bit, when my milk came in, I didn't do what you should do to promote good milk supply, because like I said, I was just sort of struggling mentally. I didn't have an appetite, so I wasn't eating enough at all. I wasn't drinking enough water. I had a breast pump that the hospital lactation consultant actually set up for me to have it delivered to my house, which was awesome. But it was one more thing that I would have had to learn to do and deal with, and I like mentally couldn't wrap my head around doing another thing, which is, you know, kind of stupid looking back, but it's just where I was at the time. I didn't even try pumping early enough, and my supply just was like terrible. Once we switched over to bottle feeding, I was pumping at that point, so we were doing some feedings with breast milk and some with formula. But when I would pump, I wasn't getting very much at all. I would probably get 3 ounces of milk total from pumping for like 20 minutes. So that was really discouraging, and honestly, pumping, like, it wasn't the worst thing ever, but I wasn't a fan of feeling like a cow and having my time so dedicated to just feeding. It's actually feeding, whether it's trying to breastfeed and still messing with that, or doing the bottle, or pumping. It's just a lot. When I was still trying to breastfeed, it was not enjoyable at all. One, because of the stress of like not knowing if it was going the way it was supposed to or if he was getting enough to eat, but it hurt so freaking bad. This is kind of TMI, but if you're watching this, I assume that you've kind of been through similar things, so whatevs. But my nipples were chapped and raw and cracked and bleeding in some cases, and anytime that I would try to get him to latch on, it was like lightning zapped through my body with just pain. It was terrible. So because of that, for every feeding, which means every 2 to 3 hours, I would just dread it, because it was painful, it was stressful, it wasn't making me feel bonded to my baby, it was making me just really not like the entire experience. So like I said a little bit earlier, our next step was just transitioning from I'm not even gonna try to breastfeed at all. That's okay, I'm gonna let that go, and we're just gonna bottle feed, but I'm still gonna pump so that he still gets this nutrition from the breast milk. We did that for about a month and a half. And at that point, I had been, like I said, Googling and researching and just seeing what other moms had done as far as deciding that they were okay not giving their baby breast milk and they were just gonna do formula. And I made that decision because I realized that's what was best for my mental health and for me to enjoy being a mom of a tiny little sweet baby. I knew that ever since we started adding in formula, he was gaining the proper weight, he was doing much better, he wasn't fussy because he was hungry, poor little guy. And by the way, I felt so terrible knowing once we went and weighed him and that he had lost too much weight, that was because I wasn't feeding him enough, you know? So to know that formula was a resource to make sure that I had that peace of mind was just awesome. I think there are so many benefits to switching to formula if that's what works for you. And I just wanted to go over some of those in case you're kind of in the same boat I was and you're just trying to convince yourself that it's okay to do it, because if it works for you, it is okay. As long as your baby is getting taken care of and getting fed, it's all good. The most obvious benefit is that you know your baby is getting fed. They're a lot happier and more content because of that. There's something about having milk in a bottle, again, whether it's breast milk or formula actually, where when you know how many ounces your baby is consuming, you just have so much more peace of mind to know that, okay, they're pretty much on par with where they should be as far as how much they should be eating at one feeding. Another advantage is no more pumping, and for me that was really important because I felt like I had my body back. You know, you're pregnant for 9 months or so, then you give birth, so you're going through the postpartum healing process, and then you're breastfeeding, and then you're pumping. For me, it was important to feel like my normal self again to a certain point so that I could assimilate to being a new mom, and that really helped so much. I could wear normal clothes. I didn't have to wear like a nursing top or worry about what kind of bra I had on or make sure nursing pads were in my bra. I could just wear whatever I used to wear, granted in a bigger size. I just felt more like me, and that was huge for helping my mental health. Formula feeding helped us a ton with sleep training. We used a book called 12 Hours Sleep by 12 Weeks Old. I've actually made a video on how we did that and I will link it right up here. That is very much based around slowly being able to feed your baby a little bit more during less amounts of feedings so that they're still eating the same amount, but it's for less feedings, therefore they can sleep longer stretches. That's it in a nutshell. I think this might be one of the biggest fantastic things about formula feeding, or pumping and bottle feeding of course, but it's that we were able to take shifts overnight with Elliot to where I would do the earlier part of the night up until maybe like 3 a.m. and then my husband would take over from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. or whatever it was. It's been a while. Because it was just formula that anybody can prepare and feed, it really helped me feel like some of the pressure was off and I could easily share this feeding responsibility with my husband versus me having all the pressure as the one human that can feed this little baby and nobody else can do it, because that gets to be a lot sometimes. But looking back, I am so glad I made the decisions that I did, because once we got the feeding on track, being a mom, yeah, it still had its hard parts, and I could make a whole other video on different like challenges that I had with that, but it made it so much more enjoyable, so much easier. I was so much happier, and therefore I was able to be a better mom for my little one. If you're in the same situation that I was, then just know that you're not alone and that there's nothing wrong with you if you're not able to breastfeed or if you just don't like it for whatever reason. That's okay. You're not a failure, you're not a bad mom. The fact that you're so concerned about it shows that you're a fantastic mom and that you want the best for your little one. Just do whatever works best for you, and if that means dropping breastfeeding and breast milk altogether, that's alright. As long as they're fed, then you are doing your job. I hope this video helped you feel like you're not alone and that you have a friend who's got your back with these baby feeding challenges, because Lord knows there are many of them, and it becomes such a bigger thing than you ever could even imagine until you actually are in that position as a parent. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're new. I tend to make motherhood and cleaning and organizing and decluttering videos. Those are my main categories, so if that sounds good to you, I would love to have you stick around. I hope you are having a wonderful day so far, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!